The microphone trembles in his hand. 80,000 voices singing along. Suddenly, stop. Michael Jackson's voice cracks. Not a small crack. A complete break. I'm gonna make a change. Silence. The king of pop drops his arm. Looks down. The sequined glove catches the stage lights as his shoulders shake. I'm sorry, he whispers into the microphone. I'm so sorry. The stadium holds its breath. What happened next would be talked about for decades. But to understand why the most confident performer in history broke down in front of millions, we need to go back to 3 hours before the show. How did we get here? July 16, 1988. Wembley Stadium, London. The third night of Michael Jackson's Bad World Tour. Everything had been perfect. Sold-out crowds. Standing ovations. Reviews calling it the greatest live show ever witnessed. But backstage, something was different that night. Michael sat in his dressing room, head in his hands. His manager, Frank Dilio, paced nervously nearby. The usual pre-show ritual, the stretching, the vocal warm-ups, the final costume checks, had been disrupted by a single envelope. A letter. Delivered by a security guard just 2 hours before showtime. Mr. Jackson, the guard had said, this came from the hospital. They said it was urgent. The letter was written in shaky handwriting. A child's handwriting. Dear Michael, my name is Sarah. I'm 9 years old. I have leukemia. The doctors say I might not make it to my 10th birthday. I was supposed to come to your concert tonight with my mom, but I'm too sick to leave the hospital. I just wanted you to know that your music makes me feel like I can fly. When I listen to Man in the Mirror, I imagine I'm healthy again. I imagine I can dance like you. Could you sing it for me tonight? Even though I can't be there, maybe somehow I'll hear it. Love, Sarah. P.S. My room number is 304 if you ever want to visit. But I know you're too busy. Michael Jackson read that letter 3 times. Each time, his hands shook more. Frank Dilio watched as the most famous man in the world wiped tears from his eyes. We could arrange something, Frank suggested. Maybe after the show, we could. No, Michael interrupted. Not after. Now. Michael, the show starts in 2 hours. We can't. Call the hospital. Tell them we're coming. Frank stared at him. You want to visit this child? Now. Before the biggest show of the tour. Michael was already standing, removing his stage jacket. Get me regular clothes. And find out which hospital. What happened next had never been done before in the history of rock concerts. The king of pop, with 80,000 people waiting for him, walked out of Wembley Stadium. The ride to Great Ormond Street Hospital took 23 minutes through London traffic. Michael sat in the back of the black sedan, reading Sarah's letter again. His security team was frantic. His management was livid. The concert promoters were calculating financial losses by the minute. But Michael Jackson had made his decision. Sir, his head of security said through the radio, the media is already gathering at the hospital. If word gets out that you left the venue. I don't care, Michael replied quietly. At 7:47 p.m., less than an hour before he was scheduled to take the stage at Wembley, Michael Jackson walked through the corridors of a children's cancer ward. Room 304 was at the end of the hall. Michael knocked softly. Come in, came a weak voice from inside. Sarah was smaller than he had imagined. Her head was wrapped in a colorful scarf, but her eyes were bright and alive and focused entirely on the man standing in her doorway. Are you? She whispered, are you really Michael Jackson? He sat down beside her bed. Hi, Sarah. I got your letter. For the next 20 minutes, Michael Jackson forgot he was supposed to be performing for 80,000 people. He talked with Sarah about her dreams, her favorite songs, her wish to dance again. He showed her some gentle moves she could do from her bed. He promised her that no matter what happened, she would always be able to fly, in her mind, in her spirit, through music. "Will you sing for me?" Sarah asked as visiting hours came to an end. Michael looked around the small hospital room. No stage lights. No sound system. No backup dancers. Just a sick little girl and her impossible dream. He began to sing, softly, "I'm gonna make a change, for once in my life." Sarah closed her eyes and smiled. When Michael Jackson returned to Wembley Stadium at 8:43 p.m., he was a different man. The crowd had been waiting. Some were getting restless. The promoters were panicking. But when Michael finally took the stage, something in his energy had shifted. He performed the first 6 songs with his usual precision and passion. The audience was electric. Everything seemed normal. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for, Man in the Mirror. The opening piano notes filled the stadium. The crowd erupted in anticipation. This was Michael's signature moment, the song that had topped charts worldwide, the anthem that defined his message of personal change and social responsibility. "I'm gonna make a change," Michael began, his voice strong and clear. But as he reached the second verse, something happened that no one in that stadium would ever forget. Michael Jackson stopped singing mid-sentence. His voice didn't just crack, it completely broke. The backing track continued playing, but Michael's microphone picked up something else, the sound of the king of pop crying. 80,000 people fell silent. Michael looked up at the crowd, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I met someone tonight. A little girl. And she can't be here. But she should be. She should be here dancing with all of you." The stadium remained in stunned silence. "Her name is Sarah," Michael continued, his voice getting stronger. "She's 9 years old. She's fighting for her life right now in a hospital just a few miles from here. And she asked me to sing this song for her." Michael wiped his eyes with his famous sequined glove. "So I need you to help me. I need all of you to sing with me. For Sarah. So she can hear us, wherever she is." What happened next was unprecedented in concert history. 80,000 voices joined together in perfect harmony. "I'm gonna make a change, for once in my life." The sound was so powerful, so unified, that residents in apartments miles away stopped what they were doing to listen. But the most extraordinary part was still to come. As the song reached its climax, Michael did something that broke every rule of stagecraft. He stopped performing. He stood still in the center of the stage, closed his eyes, and simply listened to 80,000 people sing his song. The backing track had stopped. The band had stopped. There was only the voices of the audience, carrying the melody that had started as one man's vision of change and had become a collective prayer for a little girl they'd never met. When the last note faded, the silence that followed was profound. Not the silence of confusion or disappointment, but the silence of souls that had been touched by something bigger than entertainment. Michael Jackson opened his eyes and spoke into the microphone one final time during that song. "Sarah, if you can hear us, we love you. And you'll never be alone." Subscribe and share this story, because what happened after this moment changed not just Michael Jackson's career, but the way the world understood the true power of music to heal. The rest of the concert was unlike anything Michael Jackson had ever performed. Every song carried extra weight. Every dance move seemed to be dedicated to someone beyond the stadium walls. The audience sensed they were part of something historic, not just a concert, but a moment of collective humanity. After the final encore, Michael didn't do his usual quick exit. Instead, he stood at the front of the stage and spoke directly to the crowd. "Tonight you showed me what music really is," he said. "It's not about entertainment. It's about connection. It's about love. Thank you for singing for Sarah. Thank you for showing me that we can make a change, all of us, together." But the story doesn't end there. The next morning, newspapers across the world carried the headline, "Michael Jackson stops concert for dying child." The video footage of 80,000 people singing "Man in the Mirror" became one of the most replayed moments in music television history. More importantly, Great Ormond Street Hospital reported that they had received over 10,000 calls from people wanting to donate money, time, or blood to help children like Sarah. Sarah herself? She heard every note. Nurses later reported that she had been sitting by her window, listening to the distant sound of the stadium, singing along in her thin, weak voice. She lived for 6 more months. Long enough to receive hundreds of letters from people who had been at that concert, long enough to meet Michael Jackson 2 more times, and long enough to see her story inspire the creation of a children's music therapy program that continues to this day. The most powerful part of this story isn't what Michael Jackson did that night. It's what it revealed about who he always was. This wasn't a publicity stunt. No cameras followed him to the hospital. No press release announced his visit. The only reason the world knows about Sarah is because Michael couldn't perform "Man in the Mirror" without thinking about a little girl who would never dance again. That sequin glove, the one that had become his signature, had wiped away the tears of a dying child hours before it dazzled 80,000 fans. That voice, which had sold hundreds of millions of records, had sung a private lullaby in a hospital room before it broke down in front of the world. Michael Jackson's confession that night, his admission that he couldn't continue the song without acknowledging Sarah, shocked millions because it revealed the man behind the legend. The king of pop was, first and always, a human being who understood that real change starts with seeing the individual behind the crowd, the person behind the problem, the child behind the cause. From that night forward, Michael Jackson never performed "Man in the Mirror" without taking a moment to remember Sarah. And in his later interviews, when asked about his greatest performance, he never mentioned the dance moves, the stage effects, or the screaming crowds. He always mentioned the little girl in room 304 who taught him that the man in the mirror wasn't just looking back at himself, he was looking at everyone who needed him to be better. Share this story if you believe that music has the power to heal. Subscribe for more untold stories about the moments that define our greatest artists. Because sometimes, the most powerful performances happen not when everything goes right, but when everything human shows through. But there's one more detail about that night that wasn't revealed until years later. When Michael Jackson returned to his hotel after the concert, he couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., he called his personal assistant with an unusual request: "I need you to find every children's hospital in London. I want to know how we can help them all." What started as one letter from one little girl became a mission that would define the rest of Michael's life. Within 6 months, the Michael Jackson Man in the Mirror Foundation was established, specifically focused on bringing music therapy to terminally ill children. The foundation's first act was to install sound systems in every room at Great Ormond Street Hospital, the same hospital where Sarah had been a patient. Each system was programmed with a special playlist that included Man in the Mirror and other songs specifically chosen for their healing properties. Dr. Patricia Williams, who had been Sarah's primary physician, later revealed something extraordinary about that night. After the concert ended, Dr. Williams recalled in a 1995 interview, Sarah's vital signs improved dramatically. For the first time in weeks, her heart rate stabilized. Her breathing became easier. We had never seen anything like it. It was as if 80,000 people singing had somehow reached through the walls of our hospital and touched her soul. Sarah lived not just 6 more months, but 8 more months. In her final weeks, she recorded a video message that she asked to be shared only after she was gone. In that recording, sitting in her hospital bed with a Michael Jackson poster behind her, Sarah said, "I want everyone to know that Michael Jackson didn't just visit me once. He came back 11 times. Not for cameras. Not for publicity. Just to sing with me. He taught me that when you can't change the world, you can still change one person's world. And sometimes, one person's world changing is enough to change everything." The ripple effect of that July night in 1988 continues to this day. Music therapy programs inspired by Michael's visit to Sarah now operate in over 400 children's hospitals worldwide. The technique of using audience participation to create healing energy, what became known as the Wembley method, is now taught in music therapy schools around the globe. But perhaps the most powerful legacy is something that can't be measured in numbers or programs. Every time someone stops what they're doing to help another person, every time a performer breaks character to show genuine humanity, every time an audience comes together for something bigger than entertainment, that's the true inheritance of July 16, 1988. The microphone that trembled in Michael Jackson's hand that night at Wembley was later auctioned for charity. The proceeds went to fund music therapy programs in children's hospitals around the world. Sarah's letter is displayed in the Michael Jackson Estate Archives, next to a small recording device that captured her voice singing along to Man in the Mirror from her hospital room that July night in 1988. In the margin of the letter, in Michael's handwriting, are 4 words that sum up everything he learned that night: the mirror reflects us all. And underneath those words, in different ink, as if added later, are 5 more words in Sarah's handwriting, and we all reflect love back.